Won't you open your Bibles to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. We're having a look at God's design for man and what God's intention is and what God wants to do with man. And he's created Adam and he's speaking to Adam. And although he's talking to Adam, what he's really doing he's giving us some definition and he's giving us some idea as to what his intention is for mankind. And he speaks to him and he says to him, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and have dominion. There is a reason that God introduces us to the way that he wants us to live. And there is a particular order and sequence to the way that he said those things. They're not there simply because they're haphazard and they're randomly put together. There is a reason for that. Psalm chapter 139 says that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. And we get so excited about that. But what does it actually mean? What does it actually mean, you were fearfully and wonderfully made? This is what I believe that it means. When God created you, he thought about, I'm going to bless you. And I want you to be fruitful. And I want you to multiply. And I want you to fill the earth. And I want you to have dominion. He's talking about his grand design for your life. He's talking about where he wants you to be. He's talking about how he wants you positioned. He's talking about how he created you and how he sees you. And he's sitting saying, well, if that's how I see you, if that's the objective, if that's the goal, then I'm going to have to make you fearfully and wonderfully. So what he's doing is he's sitting saying, let me put together the components of your life, and the way that you can use those components is that you can step into my design for your life. When you were fearfully and wonderfully made, I believe that God's intention was to create opportunities for us to walk into his objective. It's not just simply, okay, well, I'm going to be prosperous and multiply and fill the earth and have dominion, but how's it going to happen? It's going to happen because you were fearfully and wonderfully made. It's going to happen because he's creating platforms, and what he's saying is, if you understand what that platform is, you can walk into a dimension that I've created for you. God's design is that we live from a place of dominion. God blessed him, and he said, be fruitful. We've spoken about fruitful. Fruitful is important because fruitful speaks about God sitting saying, I want who I am. I want my nature to be evidenced in you and what you're about. I want you to evidence my peace and my love and the characteristics of love. I want all of those things to be evidenced in your life. I need for you to be fruitful. When people look at you, they should eat the fruit of your life, and the fruit of your life should speak of me. You need to multiply. What I'm doing is I'm creating a new reality on the inside of you that's based on my truth and my paradigm to life. Don't be conformed to the world and what the world looks like. Don't be conformed to how other people deal with circumstances and situations. I'm going to establish a new power base in your life called faith. And when you live from that reality, it's going to bring transformation to your life. When you're a person who's fruitful, when you're a person who's established on a faith paradigm, what happens is it allows you to introduce and to seed your world. Fill the world with me. The way you handle life and what you introduce into circumstances and situations. Take those things and fill your life. And the result of all of those things is going to culminate in something called having dominion. You are called to be a dominion figure. You are called to have dominion. You are called to live from a paradigm and from a place of dominion. When you have a look at dominion, and you have a look at it, dominion is actually a Latin word. And when you look at the root and how dominion came into being, what it really means is it speaks about having supreme authority over a domain. Dominion is about supreme authority over a domain. Think what God's saying. When he created Adam, he said to you, Adam, I want for you to have supreme authority over your domain. I want you to have supreme authority over your life. And what's happening? We don't think that's right. Because we think a good Christian answer to that is God has supreme authority. He didn't say that. He said, I'm giving you the right to have a supreme authority because I'm creating you to be a dominion figure. I'll prove it to you. If God was the supreme authority and not Adam, Adam would never have ended up where he did. Because as the supreme authority in that situation, when Adam was about to sin, God would have said, nah,
That's right.
don't do it. I'm the supreme authority here, not you. But God didn't do that. God said to him, I'm giving you dominion. And dominion gives you the prerogative to make choices as to how do you live your life. What he said to Adam was, I'm going to give you dominion. I'm going to make you the supreme authority over what happens in your life. And you're going to make some choices as to how you're going to move forward. You can eat from any tree you like from here, but don't eat from there. Why? What is he saying? The only way that I can test you and the only way I can put you in a place where I know that you really love me is that you do it voluntarily. You elect not to do that because you love me, but you have the prerogative and the will and the ability to do it if you choose to. You were created to be the supreme authority over your life. Think what that says. What God is saying to you is, everything that happens over you, everything that happens in your life, I've given you authority over. I've made you the supreme authority. If it happens and it shouldn't be happening, he's going to sit and say to you, why? He's not going to sit and say, gee, what did I do? He's going to sit and say, I gave you the prerogative. I put you in the position of dominion. Why is this happening? The upside to it is that it's really good, because what he's saying is, anything that you can take, you can use as an opportunity to sit and say, I have dominion and I have supreme influence in this space. So how do I take that influence, and how do I make sure that that influence actually is influential, not only in my life, but in my world? He's sitting saying, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. I created you to have that influence. Understand what it's for. It's there to give you dominion. Why did God do that? Because he always intended for Adam to live in relationship with him. And in relationship with him, Adam would always elect to put God as the supreme and ultimate authority on everything. And as a result of that, his life would flow. And when Adam's life would flow with God having that supreme place in his life, it would put him in a place of being victorious and overcoming. He was fearfully and wonderfully made. Part of the way that he was constructed was so that he would live from a paradigm of dominion. He needed to be a person who lived in supreme authority over his life and over his world. We do that, and the way that God manages that is he says, I'm going to give you something called free will. Your choices determine where you end up. As an expression of me putting you in a place of having supreme authority over your life, the way that you're going to exercise that jurisdiction is by exercising your free will. You can choose. Your life is the result of the choices that you've made, which is so exciting, because what God is saying to you is, I trust you so much, I'm going to empower you to make some good choices. What he's saying is, I'm making everything available for you to walk into my design for your life. Do you choose it? Are you choosing that? Our choices are really important, because they define the way that we take God's position and the way that he's put us and the way that we actually execute that. Romans chapter 6 and verse 23 says that the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. As a paradigm, what I want to do is use that, and I understand he's using it in the context of the greater idea of being born again. But I want you to understand, because the principle holds true. The wages of sin is death. The thing about it is, we think of sin when people do something really bad. He went and he stole something. We look at people's actions and we sit and say, okay, well, that is sinful and that's bad. And I understand that, because we're looking at the fruit of people's lives. I get that. But what I would propose to you is this. I think that God has a perfect design, because God works in truth. And what God's saying is, if you elect as the supreme authority of your life to take truth and to make sure that truth is the deciding factor in the choices that you make, you will step into life. If you elect to step out of my will, anything outside of God's will is stepping into sin. There's only right or wrong in God's world. And so the thing is, when I sit and say, well, I'm going to choose to live this way, I'm stepping into sin. What God is saying is when you elect to step into sin and you allow what allows to have influence in your life when it comes to decision making is outside of His will, you are going to make choices. And the choices that are going to result are going to lead you to a place of death. I've set before you life and death, blessings and cursings. Choose life. What is He saying? I understand the value of the decisions that you're making. Be very careful about the choices that you make. Make sure that you choose life and not death. Anytime you make a decision outside of my will, you're gearing yourself to head off in a tangent. You're gearing yourself to head off down an avenue that is outside of my will. And when you go down that avenue, it's a dead end. But God doesn't force us to do that. Why? Because He's given you free will. So He says, I'll honor that. I've created you to be a dominion figure. I've created you to be a person who has supreme influence in your life. I'll suggest to you things. Choose life and not death. I'll even tell you what your choice should be. But I'm going to leave the final decision up to you. Because why? You have to live with the consequence. We are the only beings that have freedom of choice in that way. Angels don't have that. That was the problem with Lucifer. Lucifer decided to make a choice outside of God's will. And the moment he did that, he fell from heaven like lightning. What happened? God said, you don't have that prerogative. I never gave you authority. He gave you authority over your life as a dominion figure. He gave you the right to make choices as to how you want to live your life. Choices start in the heart. We talk a lot about the heart in this place. I don't like the term heart because a heart that you hear in every country song and every wishy-washy song and everybody's got a heart. My heart is alive and my heart is broken and my heart is this. And we don't have a concept of heart, or it's a very distorted idea of what heart is. That's not what the heart is. Your heart is the judicial capital of your life. That's what your heart is. Your heart sits at the center of your being. And every time you have to make a decision, everything around you is going to be appealing for you to put them on the throne to be the decision maker. Your emotions are going to tell you about, oh, my life is so hard and things are so good and you'll feel so happy if you do this. And your emotions are screaming for things. Your thoughts are going to scream at you, but don't you remember what happened to so-and-so when they did that? And remember all the stuff that you've been through. And remember what you read when you read this. And remember when you saw this, that. It's screaming at you. What is it saying? It's saying, put me on the throne. Put me on the legislative throne. Let me be at a place where your choices are defined by how you feel, by what you think, by what your history says, by what your environment's telling you, by what your aunts and uncles and everybody who's well-intentioned is telling you. Or you can choose to make your decisions by the word of God. Everything is screaming for the position to take a hold of the legislative capital of your life. Who gets to make that choice? The supreme being. The supreme authority. Who is that? You. You choose who sits there and you choose who makes the decision in the court. Didn't happen randomly. You chose to go certain ways. We do funny things as people. It's well-intentioned, and sometimes what ends up happening is we make choices for our life where we let things into the judicial area of our life, and it sends out an edict, and all of a sudden we're making decisions, and we find ourselves saying certain things and doing certain things that are outside of God's will. And we find the wheels start coming off horribly. And it's like, but I didn't really know. God says, my people perish for a lack of. He said, what do you want me to do? I've given you the manual. But you didn't take the manual. What you ended up doing was you ran off and you decided you were going to do it because it felt really good, because it sounded really good, because it sounded really promising. But you never took the word and put the word as a deciding factor in our lives, which sat and said, it might look this, it may sound that way, it may feel this way, but that's not the way that I'm going. I'm moving forward based on truth. I'm moving forward based on truth. John chapter 14, verse 15. Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. We love to come into church. I love you, Lord, and I praise you, and I thank you. And I shamatata, shamatata, shamatata. And bless you, brother, and bless you, sister. And then I walk out and make a bad decision in my life. And God's sitting saying, I love your shamatating. I love your praise and worship. I thank you for all of that stuff. I appreciate all of that stuff. Show me the decisions of your life. Because if you love me, you'll make a decision that may not be comfortable, that may not feel right, that may not look right, but you know is truth. Show me the decisions of your life. If you love me, you will elect to go my way as opposed to any other way. That's how you show your love for him. That's why when God says, I want to have a love relationship with you, what he's saying is, love is going to cost you in some ways. Because it may not feel comfortable and it may not be easy. And your flesh may have to suck up a little bit of pride. And things may not always be that comfortable initially. But you will end up in a good place ultimately. But why do I do it? Because I love you. Because I trust you. Love means something. Love means I esteem you enough and I trust you enough to be able to take that part of my life and entrust it to you. I don't have to do it because I'm the supreme authority. But I do it because I love you. If you love me, you'll put my word first. If my word has preeminence in your life, it's an indication of the fact that you love me. Ultimately, what God's wanting to do is, he's wanting to bring you together, and he's wanting to create a house that is fitly joined together. He's wanting to take you from being a house that's divided, because anytime a house is divided, it cannot stand. You wonder sometimes why people who come to the second service and can't get up early struggle with the things of life. I'll tell you why. Because they're a house divided against themselves. It's really hard when your emotions are screaming one way, when your thoughts are going another way, where God's word's wanting to pull your third way, and you trying to reconcile all of the stuff and pull it together and put it in a cohesive package so that I can move forward in life. God says he blessed them. Be fruitful. What is he saying? I want you to take your emotions. Your emotional set should be informed by who I am. Because when your emotions are informed by who I am, they don't give the instructions, they take the instructions and they conform to who I am. Multiply, establish a new reality in your life, a new paradigm based on truth that is powerful. What ends up happening is when you have that, it informs your thinking. So I don't just sit and read news weekly and this, that, and the next thing and come up with all these preposterous ideas about life. Everything is grounded and rooted in, I know what's truth, and my life is founded and established on truth. And so I don't allow my thoughts to inform my reality. I take my reality and that informs my thoughts. It makes them new, it transforms them. Why? Because God is making us a house that is fitly joined together, where your emotional set, where the way that you think, and where truth all come together cohesively in one, in the center part of your life, where every time you're going to make a decision based on what he will cause you to do is, I don't have emotions going all over the place. Why? Because it's grounded and rooted in truth. And something inside of me says, it's right. It doesn't matter what it feels. It may not look right. It may not, in many ways, give the appearance of what a normal person might choose. But because every part of your being is established on truth, I feel comfortable and everything on the inside of me says, I'm going with truth. I can make that leap. Why? Because I'm established in a reality. I know what his word says and I'm moving forward in that paradigm. The biggest challenge that people have are circumstances that they can't control. There are parts to our life that are going to come in, and in the natural, you can't control them. You don't have influence over them. We should be people who are accomplished in the natural. Don't be one of these Christians who has to default from one extreme to the other. You're either spiritual or you're natural and you're nothing in between. You are a spiritual entity having a natural experience. You should be accomplished in both realms. Don't be so spiritual that you know earthly good. People are like, what the heck are you talking about? You're off in cloud 9 somewhere. You compromise your credibility. What was I saying? Yeah, before that, I was telling you something. Yeah, that wasn't the point, though. There are things in life that we can't control. Things are going to come into your life. And there are some things in the natural you can control. You're going to get an education, you can manage that. You don't have an education and you want one, there are things that you can do. There are certain things that are within your frame of influence in the natural. But there are certain things that are outside of your frame of reference in the natural. And it's difficult because those things are out of our control. The whole reason that God made you fearfully and wonderfully, the whole reason God gave you something called dominion, the whole reason that God introduced you to the paradigm of what it means to be the person who has the supreme influence in a particular area is because he's wanting to introduce you to what it is to live a victorious life. That was his goal from the very beginning. What he was saying was, when you're established in fruitfulness, when you're established in a fruitful and in multiplicity, and you're filling your earth with things, it moves you to a place where you're having dominion, supreme influence over everything that's happening. It's designed to lead you into victory. It's designed to lead you into overcoming. It's designed to lead you into success in life. That's what it's for. One of the most difficult places to be is when we understand that we have purpose, but we don't know how to fulfill it. It's a very unfulfilling place. I know that I have purpose, but I don't know how to fulfill it. I know that God has called me to be a person of dominion. I know he's called me to be victorious and to be successful, but I don't know how to realize that. God is so much smarter than us. I know that's probably the biggest revelation of the morning. But he's so much smarter than that, because you know what he does? When he made you fearfully and wonderfully, what he did is he put all the components on the inside of you that would drive you and give you the desire and the appetites to move into what it is that he wants for you. The problem with it is you never realize it outside of relationship with him. So you've got these drives and you've got these appetites on the inside of you, and you want to move to a place of dominion, and you want to move to a place of victory, and you want to move to a place of overcoming and success, but you struggle to get there. Even as Christians, we're sitting saying, I know what God promises me, but I want to get to that place. I want to realize what the victory is. I was thinking about this. We discount certain things and we write them off. But actually, the thing is, when you look at God's design for human beings, you can see it across the board. God's intention for us to be people of dominion, you can see it because everybody on the inside of them has an appetite to succeed. Where did that come from? It's ubiquitous. Look at civilization. Look at it at any sports game. And whether you're playing or not, what ends up happening? I want my team to win. Why? Because when my team wins, I feel victorious. When my team loses, don't give me the PC culture about, well, everybody's a winner. No, not everybody's a winner. And you know what? I might sit and listen to your whole spiel about everybody being a winner. The fact of the matter is, I know on the inside of me, I'm glad that that's true for everybody else, but I still want to be the one that's number one. Why? Because there's something built on the inside of me that sits and says, I was built for dominion. I was built to overcome. When I play sports, I don't do it just because I like playing games. I do it because I want to win. And my kids are upset when they lose. And I get the whole thing about, well, explain everything. There. That's not the point. The point is they were built for dominion. They want to accomplish, they want to succeed. Have a look at people in academics, whether you're somebody who's academically inclined or not. The thing about it is when they give out grades of a test, who always wants to be the top? Me. I don't like being in the middle. I don't like coming second. I want to be the top. Why? Because I've got an appetite for dominion. Have a look at people in the business world. Why do you have an appetite to succeed, to go somewhere, to be promoted? Why do you have an appetite to accomplish? Because you have dominion built on the inside of you. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. The problem with most people is they have the appetite and they're trying to get to this place, but they're hitting hurdles and obstacles and this and that and the next thing, and they don't know how to get there. God's design is that we live from that place. And when we live from that place, it's designed to have influence over our life. We should step into a place of victory and experience what that is. I'm aware of what I eat. I'm very careful about what I eat. I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't eat a lot of fat. I learned a trick about garlic, how to make it non-smelly, because I am aware of that. I don't like tasting garlic afterwards. The point is this: I'm healthy. I'm running off at a rabbit trail. The point is this: I'm healthy in the way that I eat. I watch it carefully. Because the thing about it is I'm trying to manage my body. I'm trying to steward my body well. So the point is, every morning I have a health shake. And I make sure that in my health shake I have, if you mix it all up, just trust me, it tastes good. But you have greens and you have fruits, and I put some whey protein in, and so I put a bit of yogurt in, low-fat yogurt, and I mix it, I get it all together, and then you blend it up and you have it as a shake. And it's good and it's healthy and it's nutritious and it's good stuff. And so the problem with it was, I got all of the stuff together and I put it all in the little container. What is that thing that goes on it? The what? Yeah, but what's the container that goes on the blender? The container that goes on the blender. I put it all in the container that goes on the blender. And some of the stuff, like the yogurt and all the rest, sticks to everything. So you can't get it out easily. And it's got blades at the bottom so you don't stick your fingers in. And so I went and I put it on the blender. And I'm pushing the buttons and it's not working. And I'm pushing that button and it's not working. And it's like, I can't believe this. This thing's like almost brand new and it's useless. This is so typical. This is what you get with like modern day appliances. They don't work for 5 minutes and then they're hopeless. And I'm carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. And so Sarah comes in and I said, I can't believe this thing. We've had it like all of 5 minutes and the thing doesn't even work. It's so useless. And she says, you know, there's a little button under here. You just got to push this. See, the light goes on. Now it works, you see. And you push it and everything happens. And I got to be happy and nutritious. The point is this: God built you with purpose. God built you with purpose, and part of the purpose that God built you for was to be a person of dominion. He's kitted you out to be a diminutive figure. He's created you to be a person who has supreme authority over the domain called your life, and you're looking to step into that position. You understand the purpose for which you were made, and you're looking for the opportunity and the design to walk you into that. The thing about it is, you can have all the purpose necessary. You can understand all the gadgetry and why it's there. The thing of it is, unless you go and you meet with the maker and you understand why the maker made it and how the maker gets it to work, you'll never walk into the purpose of it. You'll scream at this useless thing because it's so hopeless, but you didn't press the button and you didn't leave it plugged into the electricity. What ends up happening? I've got all the potential, everything that was created to serve a purpose, but it never realized its purpose because it wasn't plugged in. It's the story of our lives. That's the challenge with our life. God says to us, you know what? I've created you and I've put on the inside of you everything that you need to step into the purpose of what it means to be a dominion figure. Have you read the manual? It's not working, Lord. You don't understand. I understand that you've called me to be more than a conqueror. I understand that you've called me to be a person who overcomes. I understand that you've called me to be successful. I understand that you've called me to be a person who's healed and whole. But I don't know how to step into it. Have you read the manual? No. I listened to what somebody told me at church. Church is good. Because you know what church is going to do? Church is going to introduce you to some elements that perhaps you haven't heard of or seen before. If you're not challenged at church, you should find another church. You should. I'll tell you why. Because part of the reason for church is to sit and begin to unfold to you your next chapter of your life. It should show you and tempt you and tease you to step into a new season of your life. And if it's not doing that, all it's doing is stroking you in the status quo. So we all sit around and sit kumbaya, singing kumbaya to one another and go nowhere. That's why some churches you can walk into 15, 20 years later and they're exactly the same. With the same sermon. Everybody must get born again. And they've never moved beyond that. I'm not saying born again is not important, but there's more. That's not the point anyway. The point that I'm saying is this. We've got to get into the manual, because when you understand the manual, you won't only understand the purpose for which you were made, you'll understand how to use it. Unless you plugged in to the Father, unless you plugged in and your life source is from Him, what will end up happening is we never walk into everything that He has for us, because He's the one who empowers it, and He's the one that establishes the authority that goes with it. So what ends up happening is I know a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm frustrated because I'm the blender who's not plugged in. I want to talk next week and carry on with this, but I'm going to speak more. I want to move in a direction of what it is to be a kingdom citizen. It's about your citizenship. It's about who God's called you to be. But when you understand who God's called you to be and you understand how to walk into that, it'll transform your life. There is an intentionality to your life that transcends the way that we feel. We're too touchy-feely as people. And Christians are some of the worst. There are people who come here, Pastor, I just want to tell you something. We've been searching for a church like this for years. And you know what? God led us here. And it was the best church we've ever found. It's the best praise and worship, the best teaching. This is where God has got us. You don't see them 2 weeks later. What happened to them? They heard from God, and God had moved them on to a new place. We always couch things as Christians as God told me. I feel God is moving me. God's not confused. He's not going to lead you in and say, whoops, sorry about that one. I didn't see that coming. Let's actually head you in this direction. God knows what He's doing. If you messed up, it's okay. But just be honest. I would hate to be God. He gets blamed for so much stuff. Sorry, I wasn't confused. It was God. He changed His mind. That's what you're saying. He gets roped into everything. If you just own up to it. If you made a mistake, just sit and say, you know what, we thought it was right for us, but we're not actually sure at this point. But the reason I'm saying things like this, because it sounds trivial, and I understand the triviality, and I'm glad that we can get a bit of entertainment out of it. But it's important, because you know what? We do this out in the world. And what happens is the world goes, they're the flakes again. God told them, I'm their best friend in the whole world, and they need to come and do this. And I never saw them again. Because God changed His mind. Which has absolutely nothing to do with dominion. I don't know why I went down that track. You were created to be a dominion figure. God intended for you to be a dominion figure. God created you for you to be a person who has supreme authority over your life and your environment. And He sat and said, you know what? I'm going to equip you to walk into that. We have a responsibility to understand what that invitation means. We have a responsibility to understand the fact that we were fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God has kitted you out to walk into exactly what that position is all about. God has given you everything that you need to be able to exercise and live from that place and exercise the authority necessary over your domain, so that you can be a person who sits and says, it's going to conform to His image. Your choices are important. Watch your choices. Everything in life screams for attention when it comes to choices. The legislative capital of your life is your most sacred area. Watch what you let in there. It is reserved for the relationship between you and Him. Anytime we let something else in there, what ends up happening is we move out of God's direction and out of God's design for our life. It's not the end of the world. If you do something like that, I'm not saying it's okay to do it. It's not a license. What I'm saying is, if you make a mistake, get to the place where you sit and say, oh, that wasn't right, and correct it. It's okay. What was God saying? Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What was he saying? The way that you've lived, the way that you've been, none of it's going to be that way anymore. I'm offering you an invitation to dominion. I want to create you as a dominion figure.